getting a better overview.
Huh?
Looking at an overview of North America without Alaska. Comes up to northern territories and up in the northwest in this photo, in this graphic. Temperatures of the land, not of importance right now. The is very important. The temperatures are just going to let storms run wild without as much as thermal updraft or upwelling. Just going to be one hell of a storm that hits British Columbia week. Very tremendous looking storm that's going to give hopefully a lot of rain to a lot of fires throughout British Columbia. However, that isn't why I am streaming. As we can see, Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of California, these are over 90 degrees, almost completely through the entire Gulf. Other Gulfs around the world are as well. This is a cascading chain of failures that won't go away. A lot of smoke over Dakota, both Dakota. Sun, you'll see when it hits just right, all that smoke in the atmosphere and the sky above will be revealed. And right now, it looks like this smoke is just staying over Maine hard. Northeast is being threatened terribly by smoke. Up here is Wood Buffalo National Park, Canada's largest national park. Reports of dead buffalo from anthrax. Probably naturally occurring anthrax that is in the environment, but due to the wildfires and smoke, allowed it to reach conditions favorable to spread. It could even have been a bit of permafrost where a dead elk from 500 years ago unthawed, eaten by a bear, and then spread everywhere. It doesn't take much, but that's if any of the animals are able to survive this, and I don't think they could. This isn't like a city, as far as that is not adjacent to any kind of like the Bay Area was. They had been hit by a lot of wildfire smoke from Oregon and Northern California. There doesn't appear to be any wildfires in Quebec right now, but there's still a lot of smoke from Manitoba to Quebec, all the way to Greenland, all the way to France. It's reaching in the United Kingdom. This is all smoke from the Canadian wildfires. All of this. Then slowly joining the jet streams into the squall lines that tighten it up, and then they are allowed to reach greater distances. Plus, with the oceans being warmer, smoke doesn't have much. It has much more of a chance of staying above the water as it's warmer. It becomes charged, 90-degree temperature. Sea isn't going to be as receptive to absorbing carbon when it comes to smoke blocking sunlight, smoke falling into the waters. But as of the ocean, it's a lot of smoke that has been falling into the sea, Labrador Sea especially here, and It's turning back into the Daly Strait, going to the Hudson Bay. Right here is Greenland, where this wildfire smoke is poisoning what's left of the glaciers. The glaciers on the volcano Villarrica in Chile. Those glaciers are at risk right now because of volcanism. Same as Popocatépetl in Mexico in the early 2000s, it lost its glaciers permanently after a series of long volcanism. As of right now, Wood Buffalo National Park next to Fort Smith, which I do think Fort Smith is gone. I have not seen an update to confirm it, but the fire is so great, which we will look at in a minute. The Caribou Mountains, there's so much wildlife here. This is a national park, so people can't be afraid or angry at the national park for having wildlife either. But people resent animals besides humans? I don't get it. These animals are still suffering. Billions and billions of sea marine animals are suffering due to oceans warming. They have nowhere to go to migrate. Places they will try to migrate won't have the kind of foods they need. We're witnessing an event that is taking place under the sea that we can't catch a glimpse of until its chaos beaches itself against the shores. This amount of smoke poisons these lakes, poisons the rivers, stops them up as the sediment builds, and the rivers no longer flow. Except very little trickling in this poison. See that the hazardous to unhealthy line is pretty thin when it comes to this. You just dropped down 10 points, but I would still consider it very hazardous because of the massive amount of wildfire smoke and wildfires that are burning all throughout the area. Come here to Sentinel Hub, and this is the area where I'll first look at is Yellowknife, Wood Buffalo National Park, and Fort Smith. Fort Smith has an airport, and it was one of the cities that were largely evacuated, one of the largest civilian evacuation operations in Canada's history. I don't know if North America's history, but over 10,000 people were evacuated from Yellowknife and Fort Smith. Anyone else would have to drive, and after a while, the fires got the roads, the one road. Anybody that has stalled out or stopped their car for any reason, this smoke would get into their engine and they can't turn it back over. It won't start. So all those cars on that road would immolate. They would melt on the road, further destroying the road, which roads burn. I don't see any fire here. It goes as close as it's been. A whole 5 kilometers, like 3 miles. That is nothing considering I've seen these fires move 50 kilometers overnight. You can see the fire. Going further south is Wood Buffalo National Park, Canada's largest national park by wide margin. I don't know if that will remain true. You can see it's all by a river. Not all completely dry, but the river gets warm, stagnant. Can't use the water. Not wide enough. It's not deep enough to be able to take as much water to dump. But there is water that looks quite contaminated from wildfire smoke and pollution. There are wildfires burning everywhere throughout Wood Buffalo National Park and Northern Territories. These are all fires right here. Each one of these are all starts. Little puffs. The ground is completely destroyed. Any kind of road system, any kind of river system is decimated. The animals will need to migrate just like they do in the ocean, but they're not going to be able to because they can't outrun this smoke. It is a grim sight, but this isn't just localized in Canada. These wildfires are too great. This smoke is already building up in the northeast and in the north of Quebec, coming back around to Hudson Bay. These lands look absolutely gone. Stronger, further evidence of wildfire. You can see how it curves just over Fort Smith, north of Wood Buffalo National Park. It is a tremendous amount of loss. I will do a time lapse of the last 30 days. Get a better idea of how this fire spread, how it kept going, how it's almost zombie fire status, just slowly lumbering, just scraping what resources it could find left. It looks like fire smoke. Fire and smoke. And up here in the north, the dates are on the top right. Scale of the distance. Satellite. Top left. Like multiple fires. A lot of smoke. That smoke brings ash and rains ash that can be hundreds of degrees temperature in Fahrenheit, causing further plant loss, vegetation loss. It's only been a few days since that last picture, but tremendous amount of green forestry, wood that is gone, that is missing, does not come back. These are just things people say to cope. Forest will heal itself. No, it won't. What is killing it today is only going to be stronger tomorrow. Try to kill it again, and going away and actively making it worse. This is a tremendous amount of fire. Looks like a firestorm coming in from north. You see some fire right here on the 21st. New fires burning down here. That looks like one just took hold. Smoke in a squall line, tighten it up like a rope, and that's where it gets caught in the jet stream slow the jet stream down, among other things, and poisoning and blocking up rivers, but this is really actively messing with our jet stream. Our bowling balls of jet stream bounces that go from the Pacific Northwest to Texas are happening much further to the east, and just very strange tracks. The Atlantic currents as well can't make its way north, it just keeps fizzling out. Systems backing up. So this is just annihilation. It is so much gone. These fires will burn as long as they want, even to the roots. Plenty of oxygen down there with the roots. Burn. Now this is Wood Buffalo National Park, Fort Smith area. This is 10-minute intervals of these fires, moving by 1 hour first just to see where they were yesterday. This is all smoke. It's all smoke. Smoke keeps the weather away, keeps the clouds away. It's a lot more smoke than I was expecting. It looks very thick. There are still people up here, not everywhere evacuated. Like, I don't think Fort McMurray was evacuated, but the people that did evacuate from Yellowknife that did not get into military aircraft, I think it was just helicopters, but it was like 10,000 people, so I think it was larger aircraft planes, military planes, all usually cargo. That's about right what I heard. About 700-kilometer trip to be able to evacuate. This is as a bird would fly, but this is a lot of people evacuated to Hay River and immediately had to evacuate Hay River. It seems most people that were able to get the leg up on the fires were already camping or already were on the road in some fashion. Because once everybody started evacuating, gridlock took over. Nobody could move. Plus, you have cars that stall out that can't start back again because of the wildfire smoke is not allowing it to turn over. Happened a lot. A lot of people having to walk it, but they can't walk anywhere but on the highway. And the traffic isn't moving on the highway. And they can see active fires. Very haunting stories. Definitely look more into interviews for people that especially were evacuated by the military as well, since that was over 10,000 people. This smoke is very thick, very toxic. Just doesn't give stitching together its own weather systems. And then this is smoke over here, over the Hudson Bay. And this is all smoke right here. Good God. Nova Scotia. Maine. There is something extremely terrible happening right now. I only saw the high air quality index rating of Wood Buffalo National Park, I did not see anything regarding Nova Scotia. Go back to the smoke. This looks terrible. This is definitely smoke. You can see here on the smoke map. Confirmed smoke. But this 73 is the worst. This is... You can see here on the right. I'll push play again. The CD temperature. Here is the smoke right here. All right here. Nova Scotia. Northeast Maine. A lot of water, a lot of reservoirs up here in this area in Maine. Especially eastern Maine, going closer to the coast. It's something like 12 dams and hydroelectric power stations. About a dozen reservoirs that are pretty large. It's a lot of smoke. This is... I've never seen this before. I've never seen smoke like this before. This smoke is being pulled like taffy all the way over Greenland. It's even, you can even see the smoke here. Right here. That's smoke. That is not glitch, that is not reflection, except on the smoke itself, which after the sun sets you're not going to be able to see the smoke, but it's still going to be there moving in this jet stream. It's taking over in the jet stream. It's reaching Ireland. It's reaching France. The wildfires in Canada are reaching European countries now. And this big old blast air right here that's taking this, I think this was Tropical Storm Lee or remnants of it. This is a massive amount of smoke heading to one of the last bastions of glaciers. And it's melting it as we speak. Greenland is actively being melted. This smoke here, let me go back an hour or two so we can... I'll draw a line, not drawing it for distance, but just to be able to get a better visual representation of how this smoke is located. This is, I would say this is the track, its path that it's taken, because it's been building up over the Labrador Sea. This is far east of the Labrador Sea now. Plenty of smoke coming back to the Hudson Bay though. And there's still plenty of smoke over Greenland. It looks better whenever I close it out. There. That's the smoke over the Atlantic Ocean right now. The Northern Atlantic Ocean. And right now, Nova Scotia, Eastern Maine, New Brunswick are under a serious health threat right now. This is smoke billowing slowly. Is this going over a part of the ocean that's warm? You can see it better a little higher up. You can see temperature of the sea really allows a lot of uplift when it comes to these smaller particles that are making up these giant plumes of smoke that um, slowly making its way I I'm not sure where this smoke is going to go. It's moving at such a slow pace, but it's connected to so many different areas, as we can see from the smoke, fire and smoke map here. It has it right here as well as being pulled in other directions by other storms, drafts, and currents. It makes its way into the water. Particulates that land on the surface of the water in the deepest parts of the ocean were recorded to have taken 100 years to reach the bottom of the ocean. So all this smoke, all this wildfire smoke, all these embers, all this burning, it can be hundreds of degrees in the air because of it absorbing and retaining so much heat. As well, if anything is still smoldering, is going to keep kicking up more and more smoke. And right now, this is getting worse, and the smoke is coming down. It's coming from, it's a nor'easter. It's gonna go straight for all the northeast states. This huge storm system right here is pushing hard south, right on the smoke, and also, I don't know why it doesn't have more of the smoke, but definitely is in abundance in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. It's moving slowly, but that's because it's so big, it's being displaced. There's so much of it in the sky, it's being displaced and it's pushing down. It's not that the smoke is now just traveling this way, it's regurgitating. There's no more room in the Atlantic, so the smoke is just hanging over all of Maine, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. Most of New Brunswick, but this could be all of New Brunswick because it's not all the smoke. This is the current wildfire smoke. This is not the path or trackway. This is just, you have to think of the smoke as an entire entity because it sticks to each other. It's very sticky. It's going to pull at each other and its particles are going to be charged. It's going to have a lot more fun because of the sea being a little warmer. So it's not going to fall into the ocean sooner than it should. You can see it's making its way into this water wheel right here. It's got a little bit of a technical hiccup. Not sure what happened, but it is back now. We look here at the line of termination. Dark meets light. Dark. Pretty. So we have all this dust here coming off Africa. All being shaken off. This comes over, heading towards Brazil, which is a big target, and this makes waves in the air that makes water placement happen, pushes waves down, pushes waves left and right all around, creating weather systems. So this dust here is normal, we see it all the time. A lot of dust exchanging, but this is not normal. This is not normal. This is one of the most terrifying things I have seen so far this year. I do mean that. And I've seen some pretty horrible stuff. This, on the other hand, this is just moving. This cloud, this plume of smoke is a mixture of wildfire smoke that's been building up for days, weeks, months. This is probably some of the most toxic air on the planet right now. And it's not even showing up on the air quality index chart. It has, as far as New Brunswick, a 73. You can't trust these systems, these remote sensors that detect smoke and report air quality are sometimes too low for this kind of smoke. It needs to be much higher, or I don't even know if they can fly a plane into this. These kind of particulates that you'll run into, this is thick. This is all moving as one body, because all the smoke wants to stick together. Smoke is sticky, and it's going to pull and tug at each other, and the smoke will, within 6 degrees of freedom, act as a fulcrum on itself. So it's going to tighten up here, pull up here, and it's going to expel that much more smoke straight to France and Ireland. This is the most smoke I've ever seen in my life in one area. It is, I've been looking over the last couple of weeks or so over the smoke damage that has been befallen Greenland. But this is on another level of wildfire smoke concerns. All this smoke can come back to northeast right now. You see here, it's heading into Maine. It's not just heading into Maine, it is floating. It's not part of the air circulation, it looks like. It's just moving as one entity. So the wind won't pick up the smoke in the air sensors. There's a lot of problems with this system. And this is, I didn't check if this is already declared a state of emergency or anything yet. I was looking at wildfire smoke and I thought these were clouds. These are not clouds. These are clouds. These are clouds. But the wind is supposed to hit this smoke and knock all the particles out of it. That's not happening. It's its own entity choking out Nova Scotia and Maine. All this right here, Bangor, Bar Harbor, a lot of dams, a lot of reservoirs, a lot of hydraulic power stations. This is worse. This is worse than anything I've seen this year already. If I were anybody in Maine, I would be buying a respirator right now. Not to wear all the time, but the smoke is going to come down at some point over Boston, New Hampshire, all over the place. When this hits the rest of the Gulf of Maine, it's going to cover the Gulf of Maine. It's going to fall into the Gulf of Maine. Now the Gulf of Maine is going to have problems just like the Gulf of Mexico, just like the Gulf of California, just like the Gulf of Tonkin, just like the Persian Gulf. They're all warming up. And the fact that smoke is able to clearly cheat using Nova Scotia as a leap board, it can go into the Gulf of Maine in the warmest parts behind it, because the coldest parts are right here, as we've seen on this chart here. This is the coldest part. This is where the smoke is trying to avoid going. It's taking a ride on a nor'easter, if it is a nor'easter. I don't see any weather associated, it's just smoke. I don't think smoke can replace a weather system, in the same sense that an El Nino would still be an El Nino if it was just made up of smoke. I don't think that's a thing. I haven't heard of it before, but now that I said it, it's probably probably gonna happen. A nor'easter made up of all smoke, or it's just smoke that's just being pushed back from the Atlantic as it sincerely bottlenecks in this whole storm system over is bearing all this smoke down on the northeast. All this smoke being picked up over the central plains, and then we have a Pacific storm coming through in Pacific Northwest all at the same time. Looks like all this weather is curving away from the smoke. It doesn't want to mix, it can't mix. It's too heavy, too dense. And all we're seeing now is this smoke will cause problems with planes, cause problem with boats. 500-degree Fahrenheit ash falling on the fuel tank of a boat is a real threat. This is going to go over the Gulf of Maine, and it's going to be an insane amount of smoke. It is having no problem moving across at very alarming speeds. I'm just going to check a few resources just to make sure if there's anything about this smoke. Not seeing much news about this. Nothing in the. There's only fire prediction when it comes to NOAA's National Weather Service. It's an alarming amount of smoke that's not going away, it's back. Going back hard as one solid entity. These things, this as the fist and the arm that's being carried across. This is the head right here, arm. Legs are probably in Greenland. Back to Hudson Bay. This is really hard to see. It is really hard to watch. A lot of people that have been in Nova Scotia with wildfires, and Maine and New Brunswick with the hurricanes and tropical storms, especially back to back. Now they are faced with a massive plume of smoke that is acting as one entity. You can see these edges don't budge. This smoke retains its shape across itself. It is floating over the ocean like it's a storm. This is smoke. All this up here, that is smoke. It is able to stay over a warmer ocean for longer before falling. Now it's definitely going to reach the Gulf of Maine, but it's going to pull itself over Nova Scotia, and it's not going to go away. I don't think this is a nor'easter of wildfire smoke. It's just the wildfire smoke is being pushed back after it hits a limit going over the Atlantic, broken up by another storm here. This is hard to watch. A lot of people. And Nova Scotia right now is completely covered by smoke. This is smoke. See on the smoke map itself, it shows that smoke getting over to France, curling over Greenland. You can see the smoke here, all over northeast Maine. This storm that's coming at this is just pushing the smoke around. The smoke isn't moving because of weather, so to speak. This is a really unusual event that we're seeing right now. Is this smoke going to stick over the land and get pulled apart like taffy? Or is it just going to keep stretching and stretching and getting lost in these water wheels, as we can see here? As these storms, these rotations, are taking in the smoke as well. And these will hit Ireland, these will hit France. These storms are the same kind of storms that form in our Pacific Ocean that go around and around. This is the same kind of storm that is hitting our Pacific Northwest. All this smoke is going to make all the clouds heavy, hotter, less light travel through them. Especially over here in the Hudson Bay, you can see the smoke is already turned completely into the Hudson Bay. So Canada is almost completely covered by smoke. This area here, not as much. There are wildfires, but these wildfires that just started in Manitoba as well are giving off tremendous amounts of smoke. Right here, Manitoba. These are new fires. They're brand new fires. Manitoba hasn't had any fires yet that have burned more than 40,000 acres, I believe. Other Northwestern territories and Alberta have had fires that have burned over 1 million acres. There are a devastating amount of new fires burning throughout Botswana as well. And Botswana was actually going to be my intended focus for these wildfires today. This is tremendously tragic to see. I really hope people are prepared for this, but I know they're not going to be. Nobody can be prepared for something like this. All this smoke is going to fall, and it's going to be everywhere. It's going to fall in Ireland, in France. This particles heat up, they fall. But it falling as rain is what I'm mostly curious about over the Atlantic. There's a lot of interactions that I don't think I've seen before. Tremendous amount of smoke that's just being pulled away by the rest of its smoke system by getting air pressure pushed on its back. But I don't think it's going to break it. I think this line's going to stay connected and it's just going to hang around Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Terrible smoke. Let's take a is pretty unreal. The whole Northeast should be bracing themselves for some very heavy smoke. Bad enough up here, south of Fort Smith and Wood Buffalo National Park. Smoke is our biggest threat right now, and that's not something that can be maintained. Saskatchewan, Manitoba have new wildfires that are alarming in size. They're already over 30,000 acres each. These fires have the cover of smoke and the curvature of the earth to work with them. I wonder if this is going to be going through Nikias, Southwest Harbor, Ellsworth. A lot of smoke to be heading towards heading towards Maine. Giant plume. Plume that stretches across the entire Atlantic. I'm looking at live cams to see if I can see signs of smoke. Alarming amount of smoke. See here, starting to see more sensors going off for Maine, North Maine. This is gonna just come up around. Tremendous amount of smoke. Really hoping for the best, but it's smoke. Gulf of St. Lawrence, Gulf of Maine. It is very strange to see. I'm sure later on it's going to have more, it's going to have visual evidence on any of the cameras that are from Bar Harbor east. But New Brunswick and Nova Scotia should have some visual confirmation. I'm pulling up a web camera and I'll just go through a few. Because it is just so much smoke. I'm not gonna go, I'll leave that there. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm gonna go through some of these cameras real quick just to see in the distance if we see smoke. So this yellowing right here. Mount County down again. Bar Harbor. York Harbor Beach. See wispy clouds, but I don't know. I don't see the texture of smoke, but these cameras picking up too much light to see that far up. If there were darker clouds, they wouldn't pick it up right now. Unless find one that's with the sun right behind it. Like that. That is precisely the shot I was looking for. So I would say smoke is present here. This is northern Maine and Monson. There's definitely smoke confirmed 3 different ways: satellite, thermal, firms. It's even satellite visuals that you can see the smoke itself over New Brunswick. I'll make this little pathway again so that shows the shape of the smoke. There we go. That's the smoke that the Northeast is being faced with right now. That's completely over Nova Scotia. This is real hazardous, and these sensors for air quality aren't over the ocean. So seeing Nova Scotia and New Brunswick is 73 or 50, this is going to catch people off guard because this is a wall, and behind that wall is however horrible the air quality it retains from these wildfires. This has been mixing and churning, spitting itself out to Greenland, but now it's reaching all over the place. This smoke is massive. You can see here, this is just a hand of it. Further smoke. Right about there. We have more smoke joining the jet stream. Manitoba and these fires that just started. Go forward a little bit. And for what we can see, the smoke over Fort Smith. Those are our current worst spots of smoke that has been building up. Going to go reach over. Hopefully not in Quebec, because there's some smoke looking wisps here. I can push play. You see it's that rotation's taking that smoke over. So it made its way over the Atlantic, California, sorry, Canadian wildfire smoke. And it's going to be stepping on Maine any minute now. I do have camera. Back here looks like smoke. Ellsworth. Let's say that is smoke. You can see in the background here. Not cloudy. Smoke. This is a lot of smoke that's coming over. This is what it's looking like right here. Not clouds. Only getting worse. Right here in the Gulf of Maine. Some of the worst smoke, probably. I was expecting to see Wood Buffalo National Park with some of the worst smoke on the planet, but the worst smoke on the planet is actually on the east coast, northeast coast, over Maine, over Brunswick, over Nova Scotia. Very, very, very hazardous smoke. It is. I don't think I've seen this before. Even in the previous times where the Northeast would be covered in smoke, I don't think it looked like this. It looks like a storm front of smoke. This is all moving. The curves of the front curves all over do not change as it advances over Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. It still retains all of these shapes. It is not being bothered by anything. It's being pushed around by a storm to the north of it, but there's smoke in that too, it looks like, and this is going to condense and wrap around into a squall line that's going to allow this smoke to produce further ejections. The smoke meets up over Newfoundland, ties itself up over here, squall lines, and it gets sent over to Greenland, gets sent over the Labrador Sea, gets sent over the North Atlantic. Just like that. Just realized I was hiding it, sorry. So the Labrador Sea to Davis Strait, that's the smoke that is curling back into the Hudson Bay. We have this smoke here that is heading towards France, heading towards Ireland. This is wildfire smoke. All this trying to stay on land because so much of the ocean is cold. It needs warm updrafts and warm currents to travel over without falling. So depending on what happens here with this wall line moving down is going to push this storm, and it's either going to wrap around with it mix, or it's just simply just going to push this further south and southwest, expanding this further from Maine to Connecticut. This does not show up as weather in forecast because this is not weather, this is smoke. This is looking pretty grim because in the previous months of smoke over Chicago, parts of Canada, especially Canada, has been absolutely horrible, but Northeast has been getting a lot of smoke lately, but I don't think even to this level they have. This is months of buildup over Quebec, northern Quebec, that is working its way down from Greenland over to the sea, North Atlantic Ocean. This is extremely, extremely dangerous. Dangerous for all forms of life, not just people with breathing problems or diseases. This birds, all everything. 100 years ago, the largest flock of birds was over 1 billion. Where do you see birds in flocks of thousands now? When until 100 years ago, they block out the sun. That's what the other cloud coverage was coming from, was giant flocks of passenger pigeons. Now it's smoke that has taken the niche place of its evolution. Next evolution of smoke is it takes over the birds. It takes away their flight paths, it takes away everything. They can't fly. They're being pelted by particles in the sky. It's 100 years ago, the largest flock of birds was over 1 billion. 100 years ago, the tallest tree in North America was over 900 feet tall. It is under 300 feet now. If those trees even survive this last fire season. Don't know yet. It's just on the cusp of a lot of different terrible disasters that are unfolding, especially the smoke. This is happening right now. This is not a forecast. Not forecasting smoke. It doesn't come up as weather. But this is taking over weather. Now, wildfires, instead of creating their own weather systems, they're literally pushing around what should be weather. So, how does this affect nor'easter? How does smoke traveling over the Hudson Bay affect our jet stream? Weighs it down, brings toxic air into it, kills all the bugs, insects, everything that rides along inside these jet streams. Going to twist them as the squall lines get heavy with smoke. Nova Scotia is in a really bad place. This is real slow. Back to the camera. See a lot of yellowing, and there's so much smoke on the map, so much indicated on radar, that it's hard to believe that any yellowing we see in the sky is not going to be smoke. Especially eastern Maine. Looking for specific weather cameras. This is Trafton Falls, Milo, Maine. The water, the current's pretty strong right there. Do see smoke in the atmosphere here. Do see the darker cloud structures that are making up over Maine. Nothing here. Northeast Harbor, that was the Southwest Harbor, Maine, Acadia National Park. I would say this is smoke. It's going to get dark and it's not going to be able to be seen as easily. But it's going to be there and it's not moving. That line of termination comes over. And that's it until the morning, until we can see it again on satellite and on radar. Here's Moosehead Lake. This is smoke. This is all smoke over here. I've confirmed this way too many times on satellite, radar, local accounts, air quality meter sensors. It's all showing up here. The smoke is massive. I fear for the health of people in these areas. Not bad enough that we're gonna have insurance companies pull out of states like Florida and California due to wildfires, poor structure integrity. But what happens when we start seeing the healthcare companies pulling out of states because of wildfire smoke? That just takes over. Causes tremendous amounts of respiratory infections, damage to the lungs. This is massive. This is all smoke. It's all heading down. But it's gonna stall. It's gonna stall over Maine and Nova Scotia and parts of New Brunswick. So much smoke. We can't ignore this. If people think they're gonna be able to ignore this, they have no reason to what? Need to breathe air? This hurts everyone. There's no one tougher, no one tough enough. There's no way to withstand it. And even if the people do think they're brave and still have to do some dangerous job involving the air quality, that takes time off their life. Just a few hours of work when they probably won't be able to get as much done because the smoke is going to be overwhelming. Any type of fishing, anyone at sea, if this smoke, there's still ash and embers that are hot, they fall on boats. We don't know how this is going to act, but it's acting like a storm front, but it's not a storm front. Okay? Not a storm front. Wants to act like a storm front. Wants to act like a nor'easter. But I think it's being pushed down by a nor'easter. And it's not going away. This is sticking around for a while. Yep, that is smoke. So much smoke. This is Maine. Cape Porpoise, Maine. Yeah, I would say this is smoke, and this looks like reflectivity from smoke and the sunlight. Kind of see this gray drabness. Another Cape Porpoise, Maine camera. See, and the smoke would fall on these boats. Brooklyn, Maine. Up here is smoke. All on the horizon. Greenfield Junction, Maine. Not clouds. That's smoke. You should be able to, and you can see smoke. These tower cams. Sun's overhead, so it's right there. Right there is what I am looking for. Sun overhead. Looks to be a little blurry, milky. Then you have this front coming over the curvature of the earth. This is smoke. This is smoke. All of this. It is unreal what we're seeing. This is Massachusetts, so I'm not expecting to see smoke overhead, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find a camera that's high enough that I can see over the curvature of the earth further to see anything really. I thought, well, Boston does have smoke over it. Boston has smoke over it that isn't part of this whole cluster of smoke that's barely moving. It has no features which to speak of. It's just a slow moving plume that is getting bullied by another storm system. I don't think it's gonna win. I don't think the smoke cares. It doesn't. There's no motion whatsoever. It's just lurching over into Maine. Freiburg. This is smoke up here. Not gonna look any different than when we see, but just to see this as a storm front moving into the Bay Area is pretty impressive. I'll look at Boston. In Boston, you can see smoke in the distance. Playing last live stream. This is smoke cutting through. Again, the fire and smoke map shows exactly what we were looking at previously. Wrong window. All the smoke. Air quality isn't getting better. This being dispersed by the wind. This is a nightmare unfolding. Everybody in Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, they need to be, I don't know, made aware. What are you gonna tell people to wear a mask again? Not to save their life. Maine is really pissing me off because it has almost no air quality sensors for most of the state, yet it has huge supplies of reservoirs for hydroelectric power stations. Good job, Maine. You're just as bad as the... Never mind. Absolutely unreal that there are barely any. If there were sensors, they would be going on. This smoke is massive. It is a cloud structure that is moving as one mass that isn't bending, breaking, or being pulled. It is here. It is over Lincoln, Maine, Dover, as far as Bangor to Ellsworth to Southwest Harbor. There's no data for that air quality in this region of Maine. So until people start reporting it, until we can see it on camera even better, which we can. See how these buildings here have this kind of soft glow? That's smoke. This is insane. This looks like the whole Northeast is going to have a giant storm front of smoke just rest upon it for I don't know how long. I've never seen something like this before. Even when smoke came to the Northeast before, it wasn't like this. It wasn't in the guise of a nor'easter. But this is not weather. And if there is a nor'easter, it's up here working its way down. It's pushing right here. The Gulf of St. Lawrence. Condensing into a squall line. This weather is ready to be transported across the North Atlantic Ocean in this process. But this smoke is going to hurt a lot of people. It's not going to have sun be able to penetrate this. It's going to get dark fast. It's going to get dark real fast, but it might get dark around the same time as people would expect it to be dark. This is... Where'd my camera go? This is dire. This is very grim. I have never in my life, and all of the satellite data I've poured over, every wildfire, just looking as much satellite imagery as I can to try to get a better understanding along with radar, how smoke travels, and this doesn't make sense. This whole smoke whole body of smoke. This is over Maine right here. That's heading. It's just blissfully. It's pretty insane to see. Now the sun's gonna go down. Gonna pull more up on the curve up closer to the tropic from the Arctic line. A lot of processes happen here that are being interrupted by the smoke. Smoke barely moving. Barely moving. Smoke covering the rest of Canada. Ontario, Quebec is in really bad shape. Northwest Territories in really bad shape. Alberta is in really bad shape. Saskatchewan has fires that are burning tremendously, and there's smoke coming over the Hudson Bay that's being pulled over. It's going to reach across into a squall line. It's going to be pulled back over into Quebec, where it's going to be over the North Atlantic following this pattern. But there's more smoke than there was before. So it's going to be different. not going to be the same again. There's too much smoke. It's all across the Atlantic. It hasn't been before. This is new to me. Now the Northeast is under extreme threat of hazardous smoke, very hazardous. I don't care what any sensor says, this smoke is very dangerous. This is not going to be like the smoke that we've seen earlier in the year or at all before in this year of 2023. This smoke is going to be nowhere and then all at once everywhere. It's slow to mix, but it's not mixing. It's just pushing its way in. Another Massachusetts camera pointing at the sun. It's very haunting. Reflectivity, lens flaring, unreal. You better look at that sun. You can see smoke in the air, just falling down everywhere. Like, Southwest Harbor, Maine. See where it cuts in. Monson, Maine, Lakeshore. That smoke. You can literally see the smoke. That's not steam, that's not radiation fog. That is smoke. This is hard to watch. Knowing how many people are going to be affected by this amount of smoke. Millions of tons. Take a look on the map. See smoke here. That's where the squall line's tightening up here. Wood buffalo, all that over here, Alberta. See, it's not seeing clouds. Cloud base. Oh, high. That's all smoke. All of this is smoke. It is heading over the Northeast, over Nova Scotia, over New Brunswick. This is very bad. It is acting as a fulcrum across the North Atlantic and being wound up in a storm that ate Hurricane Lee, I believe it was. One of the two, not Ophelia, not the last one. This is smoke. is all smoke. Everything in these bounding boxes is smoke. Especially everything over here is very dangerous. Smoke, building, building, building. I do not know what to do. Thanks of importance. Talk about what I am seeing here, this smoke over Maine, making its way over New Hampshire to Boston. All these all these uh I hope somebody see this video they made aware and too much. Great. Don't know what's going to happen. Be safe and take care.